Good morning, 8th grade. Today we're going to be doing a short mini lesson so that you can get to analyzing the text so that you have a lot of information when you come up front. Our mini lesson today is on character analysis. We have a couple of different strategies that we use to reveal who our characters are. The first strategy is the narrator's tone. And tone means the narrator's word choice, what words they use when they're describing situations or how they feel, and their attitude in the text. I have a couple examples of attitude here. Attitude can be humorous, like we've seen with Junior, can be depressed. I think a lot of times with Junior, we see an attitude that is sarcastic. And then I want you to go ahead and fill in your own example of an attitude for a narrator in that last line. A next strategy that we use are reactions. And reactions are how characters respond to situations and events. And I think today we're really going to be looking at this a lot because we're going to be looking how Junior is reacting to his grandmother's death and other events that happen at her wake. Dialogue, what characters say out loud. Oftentimes we understand who a character is because of what they say to other people and how they say it. And then inner dialogue, which we focused on so much at this point, what characters say inside their head. And it provides a lot of insight into emotions of the characters, how they're feeling. Before we get started with our reading today, there's a really important vocabulary word, which is tragedy. You've seen this in your homework, but I wanted to quickly review. Tragedy is an event causing great suffering, destruction, and distress, such as a serious accident, crime, or natural catastrophe. I think that we think of tragedies often in Junior's life as a lot of the things he's had to face and the hardships that he's had. And I think one of the biggest tragedies he's experienced so far is the death of his grandmother in our previous chapter. So today our objective is to identify how Junior responds to tragedy and how those responses reveal his character. Underline places where Junior responds to tragedies in his life. Consider what these responses reveal about his character. So if you take a look today at our packet, it looks a little bit different. It's just our text, and then we have something that we're filling in at the bottom together. So what you're going to focus on right now is actually reading this text and underlining where Junior responds to tragedy. I'm going to get started reading with you. I'm going to just annotate in the first 3 paragraphs, and then you're going to be on your own to annotate. Wake. We held grandmother's wake 3 days later. We knew that people would be coming in large numbers, but we were stunned because almost 2,000 Indians showed up that day to say goodbye, and nobody gave me any crap. I mean, I was still the kid who had betrayed the tribe, and that couldn't be forgiven. But I was also the kid who'd lost his grandmother, and everybody knew that losing my grandmother was horrible. So they all waved the white flag that day and let me grieve in peace. And after that, they stopped hassling me whenever they saw me on the res. I mean, I still lived on the res, right? And I had to go get the mail and get milk from the trading post and just hang out, right? So I was still part of the res. People had either ignored me or called me names or pushed me, but they stopped after my grandmother died. I guess they realized that I was in enough pain already. Or maybe they realized they'd been cruel jerks. I wasn't suddenly popular, of course, but I wasn't a villain anymore. No matter what else happened between me and my tribe, I would always love them for giving me peace on the day of my grandmother's funeral. Even Rowdy just stood far away. He would always be my best friend, no matter how much he hated me. So in those 3 paragraphs, I'm going to just underline in that first. We held my grandmother's wake 3 days later. We knew that people would be coming in large numbers, but we were stunned because almost 2,000 Indians showed up to say goodbye and nobody gave me any crap. I'm going to underline that because this is Junior's grandmother's wake, which is like her funeral. And they knew people were going to be coming, but they're stunned by how many people come. And Junior's sort of feeling calm, or He's feeling grateful in some ways because the people that have normally been giving him grief about going to Reardon are kind of leaving him alone because of how sad this event is. So that's kind of how he's responding to this tragedy at this point. I'm going to go ahead and read for a little bit longer. I just want you to be annotating. I'm not going to annotate anymore, but you should be underlining for places where Junior is responding to tragedy or to events. We had to move the coffin out of the Spokane Tribal Longhouse and set it on the 50-yard line of the football field. We were lucky the weather was good. Yep, about 2,000 Indians and a few white folks sat and stood on the football field as we all said goodbye to the greatest Spokane Indian in history. I knew that my grandmother would have loved that send-off. It was crazy and fun and sad. My sister wasn't able to come to the funeral. That was the worst part about it. She didn't have enough money to get back, I guess. That was sad. But she promised me she'd sing 100 morning songs that day. We all have to find our own ways to say goodbye. Tons of people told stories about my grandmother. But there was one story that mattered most of all. About 10 hours into the wake, a white guy stood. He was a stranger. He looked vaguely familiar. I knew I'd seen him before, but I couldn't think of where. We all wondered exactly who he was, but nobody knew. That wasn't surprising. My grandmother had met thousands of people. The white guy was holding this big suitcase. He held that thing tight to his chest as he talked. "Hello," he said. "My name is Ted." And then I remembered who he was. He was a rich and famous billionaire white dude. He was famous for being filthy rich and really weird. My grandmother knew billionaire Ted. Wow. We were all excited to hear this guy's story. And so what did he have to say? We all groaned. We'd expected this white guy to be original, but he was yet another white guy who showed up on the res because he loved Indian people so much. Do you know how many white strangers show up on Indian reservations every year and start telling Indians how much they love them? Thousands. It's sickening and boring. "Listen," Ted said. "I know you've heard that before. I know white people say that all the time, but I still need to say it. I love Indians. I love your songs, your dances, and your souls. I love your art. I collect Indian art." Oh God, he was a collector. Those guys made Indians feel like insects pinned to a display board. I looked around the football field. Yep, all my cousins were squirming like beetles and butterflies with pins stuck in their hearts. "I've collected Indian art for decades," Ted said. "I have old spears, old arrowheads, I have old armor, I have blankets and paintings and sculptures and baskets and jewelry, blah, 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 blah. And I have old powwow dance outfits," he said. Now that made everybody sit up and pay attention. About 10 years ago, this Indian guy knocked on the door of my cabin in Montana. Cabin my butt. Ted lives in a 40-room log mansion just outside of Bozeman. "Well, I didn't know this stranger," Ted said, "but I always open my door to Indians." Oh, please. And this particular Indian stranger was holding a very beautiful powwow dance outfit. A woman's powwow dance outfit. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was all beaded blue and red and yellow with a thunderbird design. It must have weighed 50 pounds. And I couldn't imagine the strength of the woman who could dance beneath that magical burden. Every woman in the world could dance that way. Well, this Indian stranger said he was in a desperate situation. His wife was dying of cancer and he needed money to pay for her medicine. I knew he was lying. I knew he'd stolen the outfit. I could always smell a thief. Smell yourself, Ted. And I knew I should call the police on this thief. I knew I should take that outfit away and find the real owner. But it was so beautiful, so perfect, that I gave the Indian stranger $1,000 and sent him on his way. And I kept the outfit. Whoa, was Ted coming here to make a confession? And why had he chosen my grandmother's funeral for his confession? So I want you to go ahead and finish reading this last page, or as much of it as you can, before you come up to the front. Keep underlining for places where Junior is responding to tragedy. Good luck.